All right, I'm going to read the little introduction here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the Housing Subcommittee will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. In this case, it's just remote. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at townofgb.org. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members are attending remotely, and you can follow the instructions at the top of the agenda, so you're here. For those that are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. I'm just seeing if we have Garfield yet. Okay, I'll continue. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of such recordings. And the town of Great Barrington is recording, and any public participant is welcome to record. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. We have a quorum. I'm just going to have one more look. If you guys can maybe just keep an eye out for Garfield if he pops on, and I'll take attendance. Okay, we're calling to order the meeting of the Housing Subcommittee. This is Tuesday, April 25th, beginning at 5:30. I'm going to take attendance. Jeremy.
Here.
Malcolm.
Here.
And I am here, and at the moment, Garfield is not present. We are going to approve the meetings of March 30th. Did everyone get a chance to take a look?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the meetings of March 30th, please?
Yeah,
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, roll call. Malcolm?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Aye.
And I am aye, so that's 3 approving the minute. So basically where we are is that, well, actually, I'm going to ask for some subcommittees announcements first and statements. So we'll start with that.
Yeah, let me, if I could take a
Yeah.
turn. At the last meeting, I committed to writing a document extracting the activities that might benefit from having some kind of staff or consultant doing it. I've created a draft of that, but it's not really ready for review yet. I want to get more meat in it.
Okay.
I intend to review it with some people in town hall just to make sure that we have the right type of work involved in the descriptions. So that won't be ready till next meeting.
Okay, super. And
Awesome.
for anyone that has any questions about that, that's Malcolm's referring to the housing master plan, the worksheet that we've been working off of since the beginning of this fiscal year, or this election year, calendar year. And we're drafting some items that possibly the town could take the lead on, and Malcolm is taking the lead on that. So, Jeremy, did you have anything to add or any announcements?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. As everyone knows, annual town meeting is May 1st. And if we need a second day, it'll be May 4th, which is a Thursday. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to attend due to final fusion tomorrow, but I will try my best. There are items on the warrant related to zoning and some housing initiatives. Malcolm, did you want to just mention anything there that we should know before we dive into our short agenda?
You know, not without looking
Okay.
them up.
Okay.
Yeah, there are
This-
several articles, zoning related articles there that are really aimed at housing, and I urge people to read them carefully and consider them, because I think they're beneficial.
One of them, I guess, kind of relates, I guess, to the work we're doing
Mhm.
here. The one where we're looking to increase the buy right. Let me pull up. Sorry, I'm gonna
Yeah, no
turn
problem.
my
I mean, we're on the agenda item of the housing initiatives worksheet, and this is related to,
yeah.
so I think we're talking about this.
Yeah, shoot, gosh, I should have two things in front of me instead of one. Or, let's see. So it's article affordable housing. Yeah, so it's Article 35, which is the B2 zone. And it's so it's to allow multi-use residential or mixed-use development in the B2 zone by right, if at least 10% of the proposed housing units are affordable for at least 20 years. And so that's, I mean, so I don't know, in our Malcolm, and I noticed that we didn't, it's not in our planning board report, but one of the things that we were doing is there's a lot of commercial by right development that can take place in the B2. And so this is one of the things this is also doing is making the housing more kind of level with, I guess, level in a way with what's allowed commercially by right.
Yeah, one of the things about the town is that we allow big commercial development by right, but we don't allow housing by right beyond a two-person house. And we have a couple of things dealing with that. One is design standards, that one of the zoning bylaw changes would enforce design standards so that if people meet those standards, they don't have to come to the planning board to get a site plan review. If they don't meet those standards, or if they want to vary from those standards, they're welcome to do that, but then they have to come to site plan review. So it's to streamline the process, make it a little bit easier and cheaper, if you will, to make changes, especially related to housing.
Mhm. Okay, and what do you anticipate some of the pushback, or you obviously have probably ideas of of some of the arguments against
Yeah,
this?
yeah. I'm not sure what pushback there will be. We've had some discussion in recent meetings about one of the bylaw changes that has to do with rezoning Silver Street.
Mhm.
One side of Silver Street to agree with the other side of Silver Street. And there have been discussions about that at the last two planning board meetings. And I expect that will come up at the ATM. But besides that, I believe these are good common sense changes.
Since
Yeah.
I have, okay, go ahead.
We had looked at doing some other things with the B2 as well, but we felt like we needed more time to kind of really see what the implications of those were. So it was things to allow, like one of the possibilities was like increased height. And another story if you were creating a certain amount of affordable housing in it. But that we took out of it and instead just did this by right thing in the B2. And so this thing with the multi-unit is just the B2 that we're proposing.
Yeah, when we talk about the B2, by the way, that's mainly Stockbridge Road and also Main Street down below Big Y.
Mhm. Okay.
So it's kind of like that little corridor.
I just, as a point of clarification, inclusionary zoning, and that's been brought up, and you know, I think I brought it up the very first year I was on the select board. And so we don't have that across the board in Great Barrington. Is that correct? We just have it kind of spotted, I think, where, you know, Bridge Street is by, you know, there's areas of inclusionary zoning, but there's no general.
So
across
this
the board.
is sort of that, but not that, because
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is just an option. So you can opt into this
Yeah,
and then bypass it, you know, and well, not bypass, but you still have to meet all the standards, but then you don't have to go through the special permit process.
Mhm.
Right?
Is
And
there a
so-
reason why there hasn't been that kind of blanket inclusionary zoning for Great Barrington? Or I've never gotten that answer, and I've always wondered.
Well,
And maybe, you know, it's a bigger discussion, but since I had the two of you captive audience talking about
this is a
housing.
bigger discussion. And
But maybe
I
that's
tend to
it.
be conservative. I want to go slowly on some of these things, and but what inclusionary zoning we have, for example, in the zone that includes like the Dolby Flores, you know, in the log home and the schools.
Yeah.
You know, that zoning has been in place for more than 10 years, and nothing has been built on it. There's been no affordable housing built because of the inclusionary zoning. In fact, the Bentley housing that's there now was there because of CDC used another vehicle, not the zoning vehicle, to go around the zoning and build those apartments. So, you know, we have to find something that works, not just something that sounds good. So, you know, I think we're still struggling with exactly what incentives would work.
Mhm.
Zoning doesn't create anything. You just put zoning out there to open the door or to close the door.
Yeah.
Somebody still has to come in with the bucks to build, and that's part of the challenge, of course.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and the other thing we were looking at with in the B2 is there's some properties that, you know, could easily flip, and an easy flip is to just build a box store, because it's cheap to construct, and you know, and you can do it there. And you know, so part of this was to try to give some other options. So hopefully you'll get, you know, a developer that maybe wants to put some housing there instead of this some little-ish mid-sized box store.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So to touch upon the worksheet that we've been working off of since we've started really this year, the two items I touched base with Ross about the two items that we presented to the joint planning board and select board meeting, the real estate transfer fee initiative and the abatement for renting a portion of someone's property affordably. So he is still working on that. The hope originally was to get it to a place that it could be included at a special town meeting if there was one in the fall. So there's really no updates other than that I checked in with Ross. He felt like, you know, he had what he needed, but obviously he was working on, you know, getting ready for town meeting and so forth. But that is still, you know, bubbling. So I'm hoping to get more of an update from him after town meeting and those two initiatives that we brought forward. And in terms of where we are with anything else, was there something that the two of you wanted to bring up before we talk about? Yes. Jeremy?
With Vivian's proposal,
Mhm.
did that go before the select board, and what? No?
Yeah, it wasn't, it didn't get before us yet.
Okay.
To say it's not that it won't, but it just hasn't, you know,
Okay.
to us yet. So that is still in the.
And that's something that the select board can just act upon, right? They don't need town meeting vote or anything like that.
Correct, from what I understand. Yes. Yeah, it's just been a really busy time, as you know, with the special permits.
Leading up, well,
of
especially
things.
leading up to town
Lots of things
meeting, right?
happening. Yeah. So we'll definitely revisit that, and I look forward to that discussion. And so I really, where we are is, we're working off this housing initiative, this, master plan. We've identified items that the town could conceivably take the lead on, and then there's a bigger discussion on, will there be money forward, or will there be money to provide for help driving these initiatives? So in the form of a housing consultant and so forth. So that was not included in this year's budget coming up, but that was brought up, and I think it's an item worth discussing, especially once we see all the items that we have listed. Right now, we're up to, I think, 24, and it's a working document, so it's dynamic, and any day can be added to or taken away. So I think we did a really good job this year. We'll have a reorganization once we have elections and we move forward. So I look forward to continuing. Does anyone have any thoughts more about, coming into the next meeting and taking, taking the worksheet and continuing with that? No. Okay.
Well, I think it's just something we need to keep hammering in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we want to keep this moving along. We don't want to get too stagnant, and keep the communication open with the select board and the planning board. So I think the more that we get in front of the select board, the more we get in front of the planning board and say, these are our ideas, these are our thoughts, I think the better. So we don't want to just have this a stagnant document that sits there. So I think we've done really good job.
And I think, I mean, one of the things that can come out of this is, the two areas that are clearly, in the select board hands and planning board's hands, like those things that we can take back to our boards and, and try to move with those. I mean, that's, it's sort of the easiest, because then we don't have to try to convince,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to convince our boards, but
yeah, probably the next
at least
for the next agenda is, to have a postmortem about the items related to housing that went before town meeting, and, say where we are, what passed, what didn't, what was some of the conversations, what was some of the arguments, and, add this back into the mix, add this into the master plan. And if something didn't pass, well, we can take a look at that and see what needs to be done to bring it forward. And obviously the planning board and select board will be doing the same. So, all righty.
That's a good idea for the agenda for next meeting.
Yeah, I'll definitely add that so we can take a look. Yeah, I guess that's about it. So if just knowing that we want to get Malcolm over to the senior center, can we take a look at some dates for the next meeting, and then I'll open it up for citizen speak.
All right.
I'm going to be out of commission probably for a little bit. So it's April, end of May, probably be the earliest I can, well, which is fine because we're doing once a month anyway. So, and Jennifer, I do see your hand, so we'll call you in a minute.
23rd, 30th, whatever.
Let's see. 30th would probably be better for me. Jeremy, how's the 30th look for you? 5:30?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. And are you guys happy enough serving, being representing the planning board? I mean, just to throw it out there. I mean,
the planning board will have to approve, elect.
But you guys are willing to step up. Okay. Just so I know that, all of a sudden you just don't disappear.
Vote for Malcolm.
Now that Jeremy is like sideways, I don't know if that's a good.
I'm sorry. I know these. Oh my gosh. I've got to get my other device going again.
Okay, so all right, May 30th at 5:30, and I will make a note and let Garfield know that that's the time. Anything else from the committee members before I open up to citizen speak?
No.
Okay, so Jennifer Clark. I've opened.
Hi, Malcolm, Jeremy, and Lee. I want to get over to the senior center too, so I'll make this quick. I have 3 questions. What does the yellow mean on your worksheet?
It's in process.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And in my extremely recent education, as of i.e. this morning, when I had a long talk with June Wolf, in trying to understand housing in this town, I now understand that I'm not going to be speaking against this thing tomorrow. I mean, next month, next Monday, that Rash is applying for of CPC money. But is there any way that legally that workforce housing can be built into the requirements along with the AMI for affordable housing? i.e. local people actually working here?
Yeah. Do you want to take that, or I can take that, Malcolm? Whichever.
You know,
My
we do
guess
have
is
a-
no.
Well, we have a zone, what I mentioned earlier, that encompasses, you know, the schools and so on Bridge Street there, the whole Bridge Street thing. And what that calls for is any developments that have more than 5 units have to have affordable housing, or if they don't have affordable housing, then the developer has to pay some funds into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Unfortunately, that zone hasn't encouraged any development at all. When the houses were put in, where the florist greenhouses were, the number of units that were put in there were one below the requirement for affordable housing. And so if we do something like that, we have to really figure out a way to make it work. And we haven't, so we're still
Yeah.
working.
So you're
Yeah,
saying,
and Jennifer, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to
Go
tag on,
ahead.
so, you know, with the workforce housing, that's workforce and affordable housing, it's all based on area median income. So generally workforce housing, when you hear that talks about area median income from 60% up to 120% generally, loose. And affordable housing is, you know, generally 60% to 30 or below. And so in respect with the CPC and Ian Rash, he had agreed, I believe, to put 80% AMI on the 2 units of housing that he was suggesting that he would bring forward. So if that were to happen, he would, you know, there would have to be some kind of process. I would believe that the town would check that he is going through the income qualification process for those 2 units. So, you know, that the people that he's renting to are within that income range. The caveat is there is no way to say local, you know, local people. You can have a local preference, but it's really based on area median income, because then if you start saying, well, these people can be here, but not those people, then you get into, you know, a lot of segregation and issues with discrimination and, you know, fair housing.
what do you
So,
mean when
know,
you say you can have a local preference? Who can have that?
So, you know, with the CDC and construct, you know, you could say that we're going to suggest, you know, we're going to take a look at people that are local, but it comes down to AMI. So if they fit within, if it's an 80% unit, you know, AMI or 60%, they have to, that's the first criteria that they look at. Now, if
I
it's
understand.
a local preference,
Yeah.
they can look favorably on someone, but they can't kind of move them up, you know, the list above someone that qualifies.
Okay, so that could be requested of Rash, that he have that preference after the AMI has been satisfied.
Well, yeah, and it's a, I'm not sure if that's the right terminology, local preference, but it's something that they will take into account when they're looking at the applications. It doesn't mean that that person's going to go ahead of everyone else. It's just that, okay, we are giving consideration to the person. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and also, what about in perpetuity? Is there anything that requires that
Well,
if
you know,
CPC
usually,
funds are used?
yeah, I mean, usually there's a income, you know, there's a restriction, there's a affordable housing restriction that it is in perpetuity. with regards to this,
It's only for acquisition. It's not for creation.
Yeah,
So,
but yeah, and well, it could be in regards to the CPC and Ian Rash, it was determined that it would only be 10 years, and then after 10 years, it would be right of first refusal. What that means, I do not know, but there was an opportunity to recommend in perpetuity, which was not the recommendation of the CPC, so.
Oh, it
I
never
mean,
came
he-
up though.
10
I'm
years.
sorry, I
He would-
misunderstood your question, Jennifer, but there is a, one of the items we have here actually does deal with AMI as a measure for affordable housing, because, you know, it's really not a great measure
Yeah.
of housing needs, so
Yeah, I mean,
A-
once you pay
AMI is not,
$6,
Malcolm? Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
that's the general feeling, that AMI by itself, I mean, there's, you know, when you restrict housing to 60% AMI, we have people, you know, I mean, in need of housing, who are 80, 100, 120% of AMI. We have a housing problem in general, and it would be wonderful if the powers that be, which are far above our town level, could review what is the best criteria for determining what would be good for affordable housing.
Yeah, yeah, and the stickler is once an organization takes federal dollars or state dollars,
Mhm.
you know, they're then required to follow the basics in terms of, you know, who gets into these units. Whereas if you're completely independent and are not taking federal or state dollars, you have a bit more leeway to, you know, to say who's going to be in the unit. So for instance, the Housatonic School, you know, that's going to be 100% AMI. And to best of my knowledge, I think Dave Carver is not taking federal or state dollars. So he has made an agreement that those 10 units are going to be 100%, you know, AMI. So I think he could conceivably, you know, make sure that those are local, you know, workforce or residents. Because that's a developer, that's an independent developer. He's going to have his own manager looking at applications. So I think that is different. With regards to Ian, I'm not sure where his dollars are coming from. So he might have more leeway in determining, you know, who fills those 2 units. So that would be a good question for him.
Although
Thank you.
except the CPC money.
since it's CPC, he's going to have to operate
Except for
under
the
the same.
CPC. Yeah, well, he's
Yeah.
exactly. So he's taking he's
State
taking
money.
local dollars. So
So
Yeah,
it's,
State money too.
yep. And state money, yep. Yep. So that, you know, that is a question, Jennifer, about.
Okay,
the
and then my last question is, how do I get up to speed on this worksheet? Because a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense as well, because I'm so new to this. How can I get more information about what this worksheet means?
You could reach out to me, Malcolm, any of us. You know,
Okay.
this is a working document that we've, you know, basically when I first started it, and then we've all been working on it since, adding our sense. It was just basically pulling various initiatives from everywhere, from, you know, the One Berkshire's housing vision to master plans, to work from, you know, various other sheets from a regional
Great.
base, and putting everything, putting all the thoughts into one document, and then starting to sort through it in the different categories. So basically it's just throwing everything in, having discussions, and starting to sort through this and slice and
Great.
dice it. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Let's see. I think we're set. Any media, anyone from the media? I don't know if there's any media here. I don't see any media. Okay, any last minute thoughts before we wrap it up? All right, I'll take a motion to close the committee meeting.
So moved.
second.
All right, and thank you so much. So we're finished, and have a great night, and I'll see
Are
you guys.
are we voting? Aye.
Oh, yeah, aye. Unanimous consent.
Aye.
I'll do a Steve Bannon. All right, so thanks, everyone. We'll see you May 30th at 5:30. Not sooner.
Super.
Okay, bye.
Thanks so much, Lee.